Welcome to SKN Football Weekly here on SKN News Line, and I'm Andre Huey. It is a pleasure being here. It has been a long break from football and from just about everything itself, not just football, but life itself. Life as we know it is no longer normal as a result of COVID 19, the pandemic that's hit the world at the start of this year and has certainly wreaked havoc right across the world, disrupted everything. Life as we know it has been totally disrupted, including football, not only across the globe, but right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And this show is done exclusively on behalf of the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association. We talk about football locally, primarily the Premier League. And but this special edition of SKN Football Weekly, we're going to be looking not just at football locally, but also internationally as well. And we're going to be recapping some of the things that has happened. Of course, we know for football fans, it's disappointing. We're not able to play any football, and it's for a good reason. Of course, it's for health reasons. We want to ensure that we don't put our players and our fans at risk. And so a decision was taken very early by the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association to suspend football until further notice. Would have given more details as we monitor the health situation. As usual, I'm joined by my co-host, LaShawn Dixon, and he is with me here live. Actually, he's at home, quarantining himself, as recommended by the authorities. And we have him here with us. LaShawn, how are you doing? How are you coping under the COVID 19? One minute, I lost your audio there. Go start again from the top. Sorry.
Uh, yes, as I was saying, first of all, let me say good afternoon to the viewing and listening public. But first of all, regards to my my psyche, my health at this point, I can't complain. I've been home ever since we've been given orders to shelter in place. So I'm doing well and my family is doing well. So I can't really complain.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, that's the most important thing, that you stay safe, that our football fans do the same, that our players also do the same, of the health officials, the football officials, all those persons involved with football here in St. Kitts Nevis. We want them to stay safe and to follow the guidelines as issued by the government and by the health authorities. Well, Lashana, as I was indicating to our listeners, we're going to be looking at football locally as well as internationally. We're going to start local, and we're going to look at the league thus far. When the league was ended, or when it was suspended, we were in at the starting stage of round two, and we were really looking forward to that because we were only going to play 2 rounds this season. We have 12 teams in the Premier Division, and we're really looking forward to a good ending to the second round, and getting ourselves ready for the first ever Super Six playoffs. But as you can see, we've been on a pause, a lengthened pause, and we don't know yet when we will be starting back. At least that's the case right across the globe. We don't know when football is going to resume. However, what we can do in this show, and what we're going to do in this show, we're going to be looking at the progress so far made by the respective teams. So we're going to be looking at the teams, all 12 teams in the Premier Division, how they have been faring so far, how well they perform, and basically just assess their performance and what we can expect from them in round two whenever that gets started. So before we get into that, though, LaShawn, I just wanted to give you your thoughts on the whole situation, the fact that football has been suspended until further notice, until we see what's happening where COVID-19 is concerned.
Well, at the end of the day, as big as football is, there are some things out there still in this world that is bigger than football, and the health and wealth, well, the health rather of the people on this globe is a lot more important than football. Even though football brings us joy, puts a smile on our faces, and it's good for our psyche. At the end of the day, some things are bigger than football, and this COVID-19 pandemic is one such incident where it's bigger than football. We've seen leagues suspended around the world, all over the world. You could barely find a football league that's in operation at the moment. I barely find a sports league in general that's ongoing at the moment. But at the end of the day, it's what we have to do for the safety and protection of all. It's a national security, human security matter. As it relates to local football, It's a bit disappointing not having the weekly Premier Division football to look forward to, and it's not um, it's not what we would have wanted. It's not what we would have called for, especially considering that the football was just starting to get back into the groove following a long layoff. It was just starting to get back into the groove, and it's quite unfortunate that we have to take another break. But it's understandable that certain things are bigger than football.
Indeed. And I guess also from the perspective of even football fans, as much as they're disappointed, I think they would understand. This is a health crisis. This is a global pandemic, and it is something that's very important. So I think eventually, people would get to understand the situation, and sort of work with the officials where that's concerned.
Yes, yes, definitely. Wherever you are located, I would suggest you pay attention and listen to the officials, the health authorities, the government officials, and take heed of what they are putting in place. Whatever it is, I would advise to listen and 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 use this time wisely. We found ourselves as a nation, as a people on the earth with much more time on our hands that we didn't really schedule. I would suggest you use this time wisely and use it to improve yourself. For footballers, whether it is going out in your backyard and doing some drills, keeping sharp, keeping the mind sharp. Just do something to pass the time, and the quicker we do that, the quicker we'll all be back out and enjoying the sports that we love.
Indeed. All right. Well, indeed, I really hope that people will take heart to heart the warnings from the authorities when it comes to that, and we keep ourselves safe. So far, we don't have a high incidence of confirmed cases, and we don't have any deaths, and we give God thanks for that. We want to keep it that way. Keep it low and keep it safe. All right, now, Sean, let's get into the meat of things. We want to talk about football, and there is so much to talk about because we've seen a lot in round one that really makes for exciting football. Makes for exciting how will you put it? Exciting stuff where football is concerned, and so we want to delve into that. First of all, let's start with the team that is leading the table, and that's the Rangeley Superstars. They're at the top of the table. They are the most recent champions. They were the one who won the championship last season, or the season before that, I should say. And they certainly have looked really good at the early part of the season. There were some wobbles in between. They lost 2 games towards the tail end of round one. What are your thoughts on Village?
Well, as we said, they're top of the table. They're tied, but lead on goal difference. But the form they have shown through periods of the season is what you would want to be if you want to be in the championship talk come the end of the season. They started red hot. They were on 10 out of 10, 30 points from 30. They looked invincible until they came up to against Connery, where they dropped their first points, and then the following week they dropped another set of points. They lost 2 games in a row. I think it was against Garden Hotspurs, the second one, if my memory serves me right. And then they had they bounced back with a win against Mantab, who did put up a fight against Village. So they've had their wobbles, but the way they started the season, I think it's more in line with the true farm, the true output the team would want to present.
They would have shown themselves quite formidable to be the team that everybody was looking at. One of the things that stood out for me for Village for most of the season, for most of the early part of the season, is their defense, because we always know them to be a strong attacking team, very good on the counter attack. But they especially in those games where they were able to mobilized teams, and neutralized teams rather is the word I should say. They had a pretty strong defense. Talk about their defense because we don't know Village to be just a defensive team. We know them to be primarily a strong offensive team.
Yes, and as I said in those early games, those first 10 games, they were one of the best defensive teams in the league. They they were able. I think they went. I think it was 4 clean sheets in a row during a period of the season, and um and adding to their goals, they adding the stability at the back. They would have um, added something that we wouldn't have maybe have seen from them the last few seasons, and adding this, who knows where how far we take them because um, defense, as good as entertaining, sorry, as offense may be, defense is what really wins championships.
Well, if you're just joining us here, we're coming to you on Football Weekly Live. We're discussing football in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we're taking a look at what we've seen so far in the league. We just spoke about Village Superstars at the top of the league and are doing fantastically well. They're still there despite losing 2 games towards the end of the round one, but they are looking good. Okay, LaShawn, who we have next?
Solal and Atakanari, they're in second place. They're tied with Ramsville Superstars. Their team, they had a shaky start to the season. They weren't the Connery that we expected of them to start the season. But ever since the Christmas Carnival break, they have turned around their season. They are currently on a what I think is an 8-game winning streak. Heading into when the league was stopped, they they handed Rams Village Superstars their first loss of the season. They're tied on points. They're just behind on goal difference. And also, we spoke about Rams Village Superstars' defensive record. Well, Connery has a better one, conceding one less goal through 13 games, conceding 11 goals to 13 games. So they are definitely a a team to reckon with. Coach Azim Jenkins, he has definitely turned around the fortunes of the team. He has definitely um, added some leadership from the sidelines, and it has shown on the pitch.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point that you just made about Coach Azim Jenkins because Coach Jenkins came on to the tail end of last year. Connery, they had a coaching change after years with Alexis Morris as their coach, who led into a title back in 2013, I think it was. We heard so much about the team and the disciplinary issues they had, which as we all know was well recorded last season. And for them, they started off, they got a new coach. Then before the season actually got off, we heard that the coach is no longer available, and so they didn't have an actual coach for most of the first round until late last year. Adam Jenkins, former coach of St. Peter's FC, got into the mix. How important do you think he is to the success of the team so far, and how he's managed to change the culture of the team and the fortunes of the team so early on in the season?
Well, definitely. He, as I said, he provided leadership from the sideline, something they lacked early in this season. Since Morris left, but he definitely has has been able to come in and do a job, and it has shown on the field. They have shown fight against Rams Village Superstars. They were able to come out and hand Village Superstars their first defeat. They did the same to Fluff OGK Rockets, and neck and neck with Rams Village Superstars, who we thought were invincible in the early parts of the season, the first 10 games of the season, find themselves with Connery hot on their heels. So it has definitely shown that he has improved them. He has taken over and steered them in the right direction.
Would have suffered a coaching loss last season. They've also had a lot of players would have left as well. We had players who left the team, gone to K-On, gone to other teams. But what does it take to transform the mentality of a team and to get them to understand that, look, what happened last year happened last year. You may have lost some players, you may have lost your coach, but this is a new era, this is a new season. What do you think it takes for a coach or even the management team to convince the players to look to a different direction, basically?
Well, that's all part of coaching. When you're a coach, you are a leader. You are someone who's seen as a leader of men, and if you are supposed to be able to convince your players, your playing staff that basically have them buy what you're selling, what you want to do, what your philosophies are, have them buy into it, and then who knows on the pitch, it's all coming together. Who knows where that can take you, and we have seen thus far how that has taken Connery ever since the Christmas Carnival break.
In second place, certainly having a good record this season so far. And, well, as you say, they're in second place. In fact, they're also, and we should note this point, that we've been making it a lot during the commentary that we've been doing on the weekends for the games, especially the games that we had gotten a few Connery games just by chance. And one thing that we pointed out is that so far, since the start of this calendar year, they have not lost a game. And they're the only team in the season, in the Premier Division, to have not lost a game so far in this calendar year. So that's good stuff from Connery FC. And so they're in second place. We're going down the table. And so we did Ramsgate Superstars, we did Connery FC. Now we're on to Flow 4GK and Rockets. After 13 games, they have 28 points in third position. They've won 9, they drew 1, and they lost 3, including they've been on a skid, so to speak, LaShawn, over the last couple of games. K-On was one. In fact, K-On was what Connery were now. They were the team that people were looking forward to at the start of the season. They were playing great football. They were winning their games. They had a young core. Even when it seemed like they were losing, they always found a way to bounce back. But now, the last couple of games doesn't keep quite seem that way.
Yes, they were the ones initially rubbing neck and neck with Rams Village Superstars, but they found themselves losing 3 quick games. They initially lost a close game to the Rams Village Superstars. Then they lost to Sol Island at Connery, if my memory serves me right, and they lost to St. Paul's was their final loss of the season, and they also dropped points to Saddlers, a team they probably would have um, um, had written in for 3 points. So they would definitely have been disappointed the way the season have gone, especially the last 4 or 5 games. They know based on how they start the season that potentially the team is a lot better than they have shown on the field, and so getting back the early form they showed in the season would be key for them bouncing back um, in the league table and threatening for a top 2 spot, maybe.
One of the things that the assistant coach, Jacob Buchanan, told me a few times, just game that they lost. They lost to Connery, and I think the next game they lost was St. Peter's. When they lost those games, one of the things that he pointed out was that the team trying to keep that focus for the full length of the game, not just okay, you play well and then you drop off. He also chided them, and you remember this, LaShawn, a few times when they played Trafalgar South Stars and they won that game comfortably. But South Stars scored 2 games in that game. He felt that they were too soft on South Stars, that they were pulling back, and this is not the time to be pulling back. You have to play with full intensity right throughout the game. So there's seemed like a culture of, no lackadaisical attitude. You can't, slack off. You have to be consistent, and you have to be in the face, playing pressing football, playing attacking football at all times.
Yes, and they, as we've mentioned last season, they are very young side, and so for them, they probably have not developed that killer instinct that want to to kill off every opponent they come up against. They're still probably in the playful mode whereas football is a serious manner and you should want to kill off every team and be ruthless in the way you play the sport.
So Keon, they're number 3 in the Premier League table. They certainly were one of the teams that I think a lot of people were expecting to do some good things, and of course, looking at what we've seen so far from them, they certainly are a team to look out for. Despite the fact that they had 2 losses towards the tail end of the season, they're not a team to joke around with. One of the things that I must say before we move on from Keon that I've noticed with the team is that the young core is now stepping up. Last season, Keon struggled a lot because they had players who, some of their senior players picking up injuries, some of their senior players left for other teams. Now some of those players are back, and so they're playing now with a full strength team mixed with the same youth intensity that they had, used up for most of last season. So Keon is in a pretty good position right now, with the mixture of youth and experience. Talk to that, LaShawn, how that plays into making Keon a formidable team.
Well, I think the formidability won't come into play until a few years down the road when some of these young players are starting to hit the peak. I think that's when we'll see how formidable this team will be. I think although they have done well this season, I still think it's too early to determine how. I think it's too early for them. Sorry, to really challenge for the Premier Division this season. But at the end of the day, it's football and it's a level playing field once you go out there. So who knows? But I still think it's too early for them to seriously compete this season. It's a very young core, nice young core. If they could um, stay together for another season or two, then they may be one of the greatest teams ever to play in this Premier Division. That's the prediction I make it today.
All right, so you heard it, folks, from LaShawn Dixon. He believes, how many years are given them? 5 years?
No, two.
2 years.
1 or 2. Yes, once they stay together, once this core of players stay together, I think they'll be a formidable team to reckon with in about 2 years.
All right, so 2 years heard it, folks. LaShawn Dixon has predicted that 2 years from now, Keon FC is going to be a formidable team, an unbeatable team. I just like Village, basically, like how Village is.
Yes, similar to Villages too.
All right. So you heard it from LaShawn Dixon that Keon is going to be a team to reckon with in the next.
And that's no biasness.
That's no bias. No bias from the man lives and comes from Keon. No bias from the man. No problem.
Yes.
We'll work it out. If you just joined us, folks, this is SK Football Weekly, live here on the SK Newsline on the Football Association's Facebook page. We want to welcome you. We know some of you are home, probably bored, not knowing what to do. We're glad that you took the time out to watch us here. And we're going to be on for the next few minutes as we go through all 12 teams of the Premier Division of the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association Premier League. We're also going to be talking some international football as well, primarily looking at the European leagues and what would be the most best outcome for those teams in Europe. All right, let's take a look now at what's happening. Now we're not number 4, the 4th ranked team so far in the Premier Division after round 1 and a couple of games in round 2. SL Horse St. Paul's. They have played 13 games. They won 8, drew 3, lost 2, and they have 27 points, just 1 point behind Keon in 4th place. Now, St. Paul's is a very interesting team, LaShawn. They're sort of a different team. I mean, they still have the core players that have been there for years, but different in the sense that the senior players that were there are not as young as they used to be, and the young ones are beginning to step up. But St. Paul's is one of those teams that you can always expect to be in the mix, regardless of what goes on, who's at the top, who's at the bottom. You can always expect St. Paul's to be there. What's your thoughts on St. Paul's so far this season?
Well, St. Paul's for me, one of the most interesting teams thus far this season. They they find themselves in fourth position. They're just behind Kean. They're 1 point behind Kean. But they have had some good games and they have had some bad games. They had games where it looks like the old Sempars who will go on to win titles, and then they have had games where they look lost. They look like they have no clue as to what's going on the pitch, but they find themselves comfortably in the top six. They could easily push for the top three spot. They're just behind Kean and they defeated Kean. So Keith Freeman a hat trick, one of the best hat tricks I've seen at Warner Park. In a game that we streamed. But they're interesting because I don't think they they still have some good players who can push them to compete, but I don't think they have the squad depth this year at least to go on to compete for bigger things. I think they can they'll definitely be lacking in depth, and as you said, some of the core players that they've won titles with, they're getting on in age. But as we've seen, sometimes experience is what is needed when the league boils down to the nitty gritty of a playoff.
But even as you mentioned that though, the you talk about the fact that the older players, the experience that matters at the playoffs. There comes a time though where to keep up with the intensity, especially with the teams that tend to do well seem to have quick, fast, young players. You talk about Village and how they've been playing, and even if you throw Kean in the mix and how they've started the season so far, started well. How long can St. Paul's keep up with the experience versus the agility of youth? And again, we
Well,
don't fight on them because they do have young players who are doing very well.
well, it's up to them to find that balance where they can stick to the more experienced campaigners, but also breed young players into their system. They are a big community, a proud community, a community of great who have produced great footballers in the past and will continue to. So it's not for a shortage of talent. It's being able to balance the upcoming talent with the talent that's experience and maybe um, getting into the twilight of their career.
Now, you spoke about Kiefer Freeman, who, by the way, that game you referred to that we did stream live. We didn't read that game live, which is the St. Paul's versus
Yeah,
Spurs.
yeah, yeah.
Keon,
Keon,
it
Keon.
was Keon, right? That was the game. And trust me, that was one of the most exciting games I've watched. I
Yes.
because it was it was end to end action. It was a cage game at first in the first half, but the second half it was exploded with goals and Keon, St. Paul's, their performance was just fantastic. Keith Freeman, that probably his best game so far. And by the way, he did score a hat trick. I think two rounds later, because when they played, I don't recall the team now, but he did score a hat trick in that game as well. So it wasn't long after he scored that hat trick that he would have scored another one. But that game, he really took the game by the scruff of the neck. And the goal of the season so far, to me, was that goal he scored, the third goal he scored against Valentine Anthony from from Keon. Just came on the field as a substitute goalkeeper, and his very touch of the ball was picking the ball out the net from
Yes.
a fantastic goal from Kiefer Freeman. My goal of the season so far. But let's talk about a bit about Kiefer Freeman because I did try to interview him after that game, and he was a bit reluctant. Well, I shouldn't say a bit. I'm being diplomatic here. He was very reluctant to speak to me. He somehow feels like his contributions are not being recognized nationally as a football player. What's your thoughts on Kiefer Freeman? He's been with the St. Paul setup for quite some time now, and so far this may be one of his breakout seasons.
Yes, he is definitely one of the better talented footballers we have playing in the Premier League. He, he is, I think, if my memory serves me right, he is the leading goal scorer this season. And for every season for the last at least 3 years, for I know for a fact, he has been in the top three goal scorers, but yet we don't see him getting, as you said, the national recognition for his performances. He is still a very young footballer. He as year in year out he has done it. He has won titles for St. Paul's. With some of the goals he has scored, he has given the people of the St. Paul's community. He has put a smile on their faces many a time, and I do agree that he does not get the recognition he deserves when compared to others who do, especially.
Mhm. By the way, I see Valentine Anthony has joined us, and he said he hearing him call, so I just bow respect, no disrespect at all. But definitely Kiefer Freeman, as you pointed out, LaShawn, is certainly a player to look out for and think. As we wrap up on St. Paul's, defensively, they were that's what St. Paul's is known for. When Deco was your coach, and even with Kunga taking over as head coach, the defense has always been the hallmark of St. Paul's football. However, we've seen some games so far this season, and we haven't spoken about that yet. We'll talk about that later. There's a lot of goals being scored so far this season, even more than we've seen in previous seasons. And St. Paul's, interestingly, have let in quite a few.
Yes, and they even though they have had some suspect times at the back, they're still one of the most stingiest teams in the Premier League. Actually, the stingiest team, sorry, in the Premier Division. They've only conceded 10 goals a season, so they are not the solid defensive unit we have come to know them for, but they still continue to to perform in that area, perform defensive. They're still very solid defensively. As you said, we've seen some games where they have struggled. The game against Ramsbury Superstars come to mind, where a defensive error led to the only goal in that game, and the goalkeeper kept it at 1-0, a game that could have easily been 4 or 5. The goalkeeper kept them in the game, so they're not the solid defensive unit we've come to know of them.
All right. So that's St. Paul's there. We just spoke about St. Paul's. They're ranked fourth right now in the Premier Division after round one and after 13 games so far this season. If you're just joining us, this is SKN Football Weekly live here on SKN Newline and our various networks, including the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association, Voice of the Caribbean Radio, and various outlets. We're looking back at the season so far. We're assessing the teams in the season, and we're trying to put things in perspective even while we wait for football to resume. Of course, we emphasize that our health comes first, and so we ensure that everyone stays safe. The footballers, the teams, the fans, the football officials, those are the SKNFA, everyone in the country. We prioritize the health before the sport. Eventually, though, we do hope that we can resume the sport sometime soon. Knocking at number 5 in the Premier Division table is St. Peter's FC. They play 13 games, as most of all the teams have so far. They've won 6 games, drawn 2, and lost 5. They have 20 points. Now, this is a team, LaShawn, that we've talked about from time to time, that they tend to start the season slow and then pick things up halfway in. This season, however, under a new coach in Anthony Metz Isaacs, who coached them before, who led them to the playoffs before, all the way to the finals a few years ago, they've played with a totally different mindset. They have come out of the blocks fast. They did lose some players to some other teams, but so far they have managed to get along without them thus far, and they've been playing pretty well. What are your thoughts on them as it relates to how they've played this season so far, and whether or not you think they can, perform and live up to the task that is ahead of them to keep that momentum, to keep that pressure of starting the season fast, and to make sure that they're in the six when the time comes?
Yes, they normally are slow starters, as you mentioned, but they this time around they have had a better start to the season. They've had a good first round. They have been one of the hottest teams. Just before the league was suspended, they they are coached by one of the probably the most experienced, the most winningest of all the coaches, of all the 12 coaches. Um, um, Nets probably
They've had a
um,
first round.
right?
No, sorry, go ahead.
He's
Go ahead.
probably he's probably one of the leading coaches. He's probably the leading coach in the Premier Division ever here in St. Nevis. So to have that in their corner this season, it definitely is showing on the football field. The biggest moment of the season came at Newtown's expense. Its former team where he won so many trophies. It came at their expense at 6-0 drubbing to one of the biggest clubs in St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Peter's would want to use that and the other performances they've had. They also beat Rams Village Superstars, and they would want to use that to push as a catalyst to push them on and push them to bigger and better things in the season.
Right. How do you think that having a coach like Nets, well, I think you pointed out that he certainly has had a lot of success. He had success with Newtown when he was the head coach back then. But what do you think having Nets will help do to the team as well? Because apart from just his experience, considering that he would have led them to the finals a few years ago, and some of those players would still be playing on that team, how much having a coach like him in the mix will help them to make playoff and probably do something in the playoffs in the Super Six.
Well, we have always preached on this program that experience is something that you can't teach. He has won many titles with Newtown United. Probably, as I said, the most winningest coach in the Premier Division. He is a student of football. He has also been amongst the other coaches that were part of the CONCACAF course and taking his expertise and his talents to a team like St. Peter's, a team that's always on the bottom half of playoff contention or on the top half of just not good enough for the playoffs. His experience will most likely add a few more wins, for lack of a better term, to the St. Peter's FC season.
Well, all right. Well, we will see what happens where St. Peter's are concerned. They're certainly a team to look out for as it relates to their performance and what we can expect from them. But St. Peter's FC, certainly a team to watch out for here in the Premier League. Coming up next at number 6, a team that we've spoken admirably about over the last few weeks and even during last season, because we've seen the signs of it last season, and certainly they're in the running for the 6 right now. Even so, just so they're tied on points with St. Peter's at number 20. They've played 13 games, won 5, drawn 5, lost 3. Sparse-Cast Saddlers, the team from rural St. Kitts, very neighboring rural to St. Paul's, very close to St. Paul's in terms of geographical location, and a team that a lot of people are putting their eyes on because Saddlers have been doing some pretty good things. You've spoken greatly about Saddlers and how well they've played and how well you expect them to do. Do you expect them to be the playoffs, first of all, based on what you've seen so far this season?
Yes, especially in the early part of the season, they were very consistent with their performances after a tough loss in Newtown. They bounced back very well and collected some points along the way. Lately, it has fallen off a bit. They took some points off of Keon and then dropped points to Old Road. You wouldn't expect that of a team who may be in the lower half of the playoff rating. They are we used to refer to them as a banana skin team. They have long graduated from that and are a team expected to battle for a playoff spot. Um, no one in the near future, in the very least.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens in terms of Sadlers are concerned. Anybody on Sadlers that you look out for in terms of a player that is somebody who can put out a good performance and do well.
Well, there's Ivan Soy Barnes. I think he's a national team player. I think he's one of the better players in that Sadlers unit. There's also Junik Eddy. I know he's one of my closer friends, but the leadership he brings to that team, I think, is invaluable, and it goes a long way in motivating the players. Even though skill wise he may not be the greatest, but the leadership he brings more than makes up for that.
Hmm. All right. Well, right next on the agenda right now is Hobson Enterprises Garden Hotspurs. They are ranked at number 7. After 13 games, they've won 5, drawn 2, lost 6. They have 17 points with a goal difference of 2 plus 2. Spurs is a team that, with the playoffs expanded to 6. LaShawn, this is a team that you expect to have a shoo-in into the playoffs. But if we look at the standings now, the playoffs were called now, they will be on the outside looking in. And they started off the league looking okay. Okay, they look like a Deco team because Austin Deco is your coach. Then all of a sudden, these mixed bags of results, you win this week, you lose next week. And it just hasn't been a really good finish for them in the first round. What can we expect of Spurs going forward?
Well, Spurs, if you had said to people 2 years ago that there will be a Super Six playoffs, and more than halfway through the 2019-2020 season, Spurs and Newtown will be on the outside looking in, they may have laughed in your face, but the reality is Spurs are on the outside looking in. They're 3 points behind Sadlers and St. Peter's for 5th and 6th. And as you said, if the season were to end today, they'll be out of the reckoning for the Super 6 playoffs. And hopefully the season will return and can continue. And everyone gets a fair shake at the spot in the playoffs. But as we see, thus far, Spurs have been really inconsistent. They have produced some good games against, I think, was Rams with the Superstars, my memory serves me right, and against St. Paul's. So if they can replicate that more throughout the end of the season when it does restart, they're in a position. They definitely be one in a position for the bottom half of the playoff.
Deco, one of the things that Deco pointed out with Spurs, in fact, towards the latter end of the first round, was that they lost, I think, 2 of their star strikers was away on work duties and was unable to be available to make themselves play for the team. And so one other thing that he always complains about is the inability for them to score enough goals. And if you don't score goals, you don't win the game. And we know Deco in his playing days, his emphasis on goal scoring as well as also defending well, trying to get that right balance. How much? I mean, at this point, you can't really call for players now. I don't think the transfer window is open, so you can't necessarily try to bolster the team. But what can he do to help increase the goal scoring opportunities for the team? Because they are creating chances. It doesn't matter if they're not putting them away.
Yes, and the lack of a clinical finisher will always tend to be difficult to win in a situation to difficult to win in. Sorry, and he pointed out a lack of the strikers in the world. That's something our clubs will have to contend with, but hopefully for their sake they can find some relief, whether it's through availability of those players. Hopefully not through job losses, but over those cut. But they hopefully going forward for them they can find a solution that works for everyone.
Seeing now we've talked about Rams with the superstar, Solana and Auto Spice Connery, play for GKN Rockets, SL Horses and Falls, St. Peter's, Fastcast Saddlers, and Hobson Enterprises Garden Hotspurs. So now turn our attention now to Escrow Newtown United. Now Newtown is one of those teams that with rich with history. In terms of domestic football, I think we were challenged on this some time ago, but in terms of domestic football, they have the most titles in top flight domestic football. So let me just make it plain. By the way, we should give some respect to Spurs. They're the oldest team in the federation. They've been around since 1962. So they have a wealth of history behind them. But when it comes to Newtown, who've also been around for quite some time, they have certainly put their mark on the table, winning quite a few top flight titles. So far, though, they are in the Belgians. They're at number 8 after 13 games with 17 points. They've won 5, drawn 2, lost 6 with a -8 goal difference. Now, this is not what we come to expect from Newtown, LaShawn. Why do you think Newtown is struggling like this?
Well, it is for a number of reasons. They're in the middle of a rebuild of the players of the club. They're the most storied football club as it relates to titles, as you said, domestic club titles. They haven't won one in a few years. I think since 2012 was the last time they won, if memory serves me right, and they have struggled at times to even make the playoffs. And so they would want to correct that. But this season, they have put in some inconsistent performances. One of the worst performances of the season came against Ramsville Superstars, where they were dropped. And then to add matters worse, the old coach let put 6 past them, and they they were struggling. They also lost the captain at the club captain at the time in Kennedy Isles for reasons we all know by now, and they would want to bounce back from these difficult moments throughout the season. And despite all that, they still just 3 points off a top 6 place. They haven't they shouldn't have lost hope of getting a playoff spot. It's still within touching distance. Also, you have to consider they lost 6 points for playing players who should have been suspended, but they lost those points. But it's still time in the season for them to bounce back and make a proper playoff push, run a string of games together and make a proper push for the playoffs.
Indeed. Well, for their sake, because they've added problems as well to that. Because if you're going to be in a position where you feel players that are ineligible to play, losing 6 points, that's a lot of points to lose. When the league is so close that anything is possible. So we'll see what happens when Newtown, when the league resumes, how well they're going to perform. Now in number 9 is KC United Old Road Jets. They have 13. They played in 13 games. They have 14 points, 4 wins, 2 draws, and 7 losses. Old Road. This is a very different Old Road because they have a coach that is a gem. If in football circles, he coached Connery FC for several years, led them to a title in 2013, and made them reach multiple final appearances. Now he's coaching his hometown team in Old Road Jets. We've seen some mixed performances from Old Road. So we've seen some promise, and then we've seen some not so great games. Games that we expect them to win, they didn't win. And this is a team that, based on their coach and based on their experience, should not be relegated. But based on how they're performing, What are your thoughts, LaShawn?
Well, as I said, they've had some games where they showed promise, and others where they um, look like a team who should be relegated. Last season, if it wasn't for the impasse, they probably would have gotten relegated, and they got a second chance. But and this year, we see them put more promising performances than the bad performances. This year, we've seen them. They're on 14 points. They 9 points ahead of the teams behind them. They would have um, taken advantage of the experience Morris brought to them from my vantage point. Although you may argue that they could be in a better position, I think they will take another year of building and remaining in the Premier League than than a relegation fight. Once their performances remain at the level it was before the suspension of the league, they should be a team who 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 will be sitting comfortably and looking forward for another season in the Premier Division. Andrew?
Just asking LaShawn, Coach Alexis Morris, he's certainly a reputable manager. He's had good results. He has a good record. Do you think he's the right man for the job to take this team? I mean, it's not as talented as Connery, but he certainly has experience.
Yes, as you said, they don't boast of the same types of talent that we see in Connery, but there's some potential there. They also a very young side. Many of them probably just finishing high school recently, still is, and they probably have passed through the hands of Mr. Morris, who works at the Verchilds High School. So there'll be some chemistry with him and them. So it will be a unique partnership. Some of them being coached by him in the Premier Division.
All right. And we move now to Mantab. They are ranked number 10th after playing 13 games, only won 1, lost 10, drawn 2. And they have 5 points, a minus 34 goal difference. Mantab, another team that barely escaped relegation, primarily because of the fact that, as you pointed out, LaShawn, the impasse we had last season. So they've been safe as a result of that. But with what's happening there with Mantab, is there any hope? Can they turn things around? And we've not seen, performances from the team to say yes, this is Mantab to stay up this season.
Well, they've had a difficult time for the season. This season, last season we've seen them showing a lot of promise, especially the games that were played in Cairn. They played very well in those encounters, but this year so far they have been very inconsistent. The only win coming against Trafalgar South Stars, and it was a game they were down 1-0 in, and then within the space of, I think, was 5 or 7 minutes, they were ahead 3-1. So the performances haven't been up to par for the Premier Division, but with this break in the league, it's an opportunity for them to do introspect and to see where they went wrong and to improve upon their performances and hopefully finish the season strong and climb out of this relegation dogfight they find themselves.
Would you call them a one-man team? I don't know how much they depend on Alexander in terms of Sylvester in terms of his performance, and he's the main goal scorer for them. He's been scoring most of their goals. They scored 5. He scored probably 4.
Yes, but they have some good players outside of him. One that comes to mind is Kerry. I can't remember his first name. Kerry.
Yeah,
He
a
went,
couple of years ago.
man,
I think he won a Crystal Award a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
probably. But he is one of the better performers. He sometimes get lost within the game, but he is not a bad footballer.
All right. Well, let's hope for their sake because they did have a chance. They got a chance this season to make it right because they would have been relegated if things had gone normally well. All right. Coming down now to the wire, we would have been ending here at the 10 teams, but we now have 12 teams for this season. Elko Limited Security Forces, they are number 11. They're one of the newly promoted teams. And interestingly enough, the 2 teams that were newly promoted are the ones so far sitting outside the relegation zone. But it's Elko Limited Security Forces United. And they are number 11. They have won 1 match, they've drawn 2, and they've lost 10. And they have 5 points with a minus 40 goal difference. So they are tied on points with Mantap. They're also a team, too, LaShawn, that had some challenges, it seems, some disagreements. Their coach that they got them promoted in Kenroy Nibs, he and them had a falling out, and so he's no longer with the team. And so they have a new coach, basically part of the coaching staff from before. Security Forces, have they dazzled you so far? Have they shown any sign of promise in terms of what they can do?
Well, earlier in the season, especially the first round, they definitely showed promise. The league position doesn't really reflect how good they have been in some games this season. But also they had games they've competed in and then just let go. One that comes to mind was the last game they played against Newtown when I think they led in that game and then Newtown got an equalizer and then very late on in that game found a late winner that robbed Security Forces of a valuable point, but they definitely would be disappointed of where they are in the table, considering how well they have played in some spots throughout the season.
Have coming with a lot of promise. I remember when they won Division 1 and they got promoted, there was a lot of fanfare. I know police get promoted for most police don't prominent football. And this excitement with Security Forces in the Premier Division. That honeymoon period seemed to have gone quite quickly.
Yes, and they despite some good performances, as I said, they've struggled to hold on to some leads and to some losing the game, some winning positions. They probably believe that they probably leading the league in that statistic, but they have shown promise. They have shown that they can compete, and hopefully when the season resumes, they can use the potential they've shown to propel themselves away from the relegation.
All right. And we're coming down to the wire now. LaShawn, we're looking now at the team at the bottom of the table. Trafalgar South Stars, after 13 games, they've won 1, drawn 1, lost 11 with 4 points. They are just 1 point behind Security Forces. Any hope for Trafalgar South Stars? Can they get themselves out of the dogfight, out of the relegation zone? I mean, we've seen some promise from them.
Yes, and I think Trafalgar may be the most disappointed team that the league had to be suspended because heading into the suspension, they recorded their first win. They defeated Guyana Spurs, I think, in the FA Cup. and I think they got an adjust somewhere in between there. So they were starting to build some momentum in their season. Trafalgar, they're a team that, for the most part of the season, from the games I've seen, they compete well for 60 minutes, but beyond that, they struggle. I could remember them giving Mantab a good run for their money, having a first half lead, and then, as I said earlier, within 5 to 7 minutes, that lead turned into a 2-goal deficit, and they would have been disappointed to let that opportunity slip.
Indeed. Well, we're going to watch and see what happens, though. So there you have it, the teams in the Premier Division so far, and how they have been performing, and just giving assessment on how we think they will fare. Well, LaShawn, we're going to wrap up, and we're going to wrap up by looking at international football. Now, the English Premier League, La Liga, even the Champions League in Europe, all of it has come to a halt. Every sporting activity has come to a halt this season. We see the Olympics being postponed. We see even Carifta games closer to home here being postponed. At home, we've seen a number of other sporting events in addition to football also being postponed or cancelled. What will it take? What, in your opinion, should be the best resolution for the completion of the English Premier League in particular, which is the most popular league in the world and one which a lot of fans here pay attention to?
Yes, we've seen even the Belgium league. They have decided to cancel the season altogether. Hopefully, the other leagues around Europe wouldn't have to take that step. But I do believe we deserve to see a finish of this Premier League, and the other leagues, a league, and all that. But also the economic fallout for some of these teams, with clubs such as the big bad Barcelona having to cut player wages 70%, and in the middle of a financial worries, and other worries, where it is even talked about Messi may even walk away from Barcelona. I don't believe that will happen, but it's something we have to watch. We've also seen the postponement of the European football championships that was set for this summer, and it moves now to next summer and next year's summer, and it will be interesting to see how the 1 year delay will affect some of those countries, considering the age of some of the players, and another year having to wait for European Championship. How that will affect them? That's something also to keep an eye on.
Well, another thing that we have to look at as well when it comes to that is the fact that there are players whose contracts are also coming up as well, and we're going to be expired. Some players are on their last contract, on all these things. What happens to that situation? What do you think should happen there?
Yes, that's something that's a concern, because normally a player's contract expires on June 30th. And so those players whose contract are expired, if the leagues are restarted, and go beyond June 30th, how will that scenario play out? Will they have to play on a pay for pay basis? Will the contracts be extended to adjust to? Would they be adjusted to accommodate the lengthened season? Will they have to pay for nothing, being getting paid? No, some of them at least. Will they just have to pay for nothing come later in the season?
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation. It's not one that you can find a solution to very easily. Belgium, I think, has sort of taken the easier solution, it seems, which is just to postpone the season, or to end the season rather, and award the title to the league leaders, and eventually, that situation will play out itself. But it's rather difficult. What do you think, though? There's a suggestion coming out of UEFA that UEFA should, or they're looking at playing. One of the suggestions is looking at playing a mini tournament in August with the teams in the teams that are already in the have remained in the Champions League, and just have a playout with those teams and just call it a day.
Yeah, that can be another option. Also, another option can be is changing the period when we start these leagues, because come when Qatar is to host the World Cup, the World Cup will be played during the winter time, so it's the leagues will have to go on break in the middle of the season during that period. So why not use this opportunity to restructure the timeline of playing the leagues? I know it will be a change of culture, a change of everything that we've come accustomed to, but that's another option they can take, where the league start, let's say, the 1st of January, as opposed to in the summer, and it runs until June, July, August, and then breaks and restarts in January again. But there are many options of this. Hello?
Liverpool are about to win the English Premier League, and they haven't won it in 30 years. That it's some jinx that is causing them not to win it, or at least not to be declared winners.
I didn't hear the question.
I was saying, are you hearing clearly? Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes,
Because I was saying that there are some who are joking that because Liverpool, because they haven't won the title in 30 years, and they've jinxed the season basically. So because they're on the path of winning it, they're no longer going to get it because because of the team.
Yes, that would be unfortunate, and for them, there are many non-Liverpool fans out there who would want to see the season cancelled and be null and void, just so that the wait could continue for the Liverpool supporters. But in truth and in fact, they have been the best team, especially in the English Premier Division. They have not yet lost all season. They dropped, I think, 2 points all season.
Okay.
4
lost.
points, I think.
They did lose a game. They lost to.
They lost to Watford. Sorry, yes.
Mhm.
It's been so long, I forgot. They lost a game to Watford.
As an Arsenal fan, you have to make sure you know that one.
Yes.
You want to protect
Yes,
the
but they're more than deserving of the league title. I think they are 5 points away, 6 points away from officially being named champions. And so I think they deserve. If the season is not allowed to continue, I think Liverpool definitely deserve to be crowned champion. They've been that good for the length and breadth of the season. And this is coming from someone who doesn't support Liverpool, who always hopes Liverpool loses, but they definitely deserve to win the Premier Division this season, Premier League this season.
All right. Well, LaShawn, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, though, I just wanted to give you your final thoughts on the season, the Premier League season, the SKNFA Premier League season. What are your thoughts about the league so far? One of the things that stood out for me is the number of goals that have been scored so far in the league. We've had a really high scoring league so far, in excess of what? We just finished round one, and we have far in excess of 200 or so more goals scored in the competition. So it is a high scoring league so far. That's one of the things that stood out for me. But anything that else that stood out for you?
Yes, definitely. That's what stands out for me. The amount of goals that has been scored, whether it's because of watering down of the quality of the league, or it's an upgrade, as Al of our co-commentator has said. It's the coaches going up and getting and being improved via the SKNFA through a CONCACAF B license. He believes that is what has led to the amount of goals that has been scored this season. So hopefully, the league can start back within a reasonable time, and we are able to complete the Premier League this year after we didn't last season. Hopefully, we can do so this year and go on and football move from strength to strength, and we get through this battle.
All right. Well, LaShawn, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for your time. Taking time out during your quarantine to the nationwide quarantine. We've all been told to stay at home. But taking time out to speak to us and letting us hearing your thoughts on the league so far. And again, we encourage fans to stay home, stay safe. You don't have to leave. Well, on the partial curfew days, of course, they stay home. But generally, you're required to stay at home during lockdown so that we try to fight this COVID-19 and eventually get back to normal life as quickly as possible. Again, LaShawn, thank you so much. LaShawn Dixon of the St. Kitts Nevis Observer and our resident football analyst speaking with us here on Football Weekly. Stay safe.
Yes, and thanks for having me again. And I will urge the general public to stay safe, shelter in place. When you have the curfew days, take advantage of those. Go out and shop for your family. But if you don't have to, stay indoors and stay safe. And practice social distancing when you do go into into the public.
All right. All right. Again, thanks, LaShawn, and thank you, viewers, for those who watched us on the SK Newsline Facebook page, as well as the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association, or wherever you have viewed us. Thank you so much. We will have this packaged and ready for rebroadcast on our website, sknewsline.com, and on our online radio station, voiceofthecaribbean.net, as of tomorrow at around 7 p.m. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to this special edition. I call it the COVID-19 edition of the SKN Football Weekly.